Who is in Daria? Hi everyone, I see that 15 participants are already in. I will wait still for 1-2 minutes to see if someone else is trying to connect, and then we will start our webinar. Thank you. We will probably start because we see that some of you are already in. I will take the advantage to say hi everyone, or good morning or good afternoon, good evening. I don't know from where are you in the world, because we had people registered from Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, but also from the European countries. My name is Christina Cassian, and I'm representing a French cluster, which is called EEC Enterprises. I will be the moderator of this webinar, and I would like to say some words before starting the webinar and giving the floor to the 3 speakers who accepted to come today and speak about the ICZM topic. I would take the advantage to share with you my screen so that you can see my presentation. Try to see. Yes. So before giving the floor to the speakers, EEC Enterprises is a French cluster who is in charge of the knowledge transfer in the Blue Islands project. And Blue Islands project is a project whose gathering together 9 Mediterranean islands, 2 economic operators, 2 research institutions, and 1 interregional association specialized in resources management. So you can see in the screen our partnership and its geographical position. The Blue Islands project aims to identify and mitigate the effects of the seasonal variation of waste generation in Med Islands as an effect of tourism, and it's founded within the framework of Interreg Med program. One of the main goals of this project is to improve the knowledge of the partners, but also of the other interesting stakeholders about the waste streams and build common synergies in order to mitigate the effect of waste generation in Med Islands. I mean the big Med Islands as an effect of tourism. For more information on the project, I highly recommended you to connect on the Interreg Med Blue Islands website, or to contact us to info@blueislands.eu, so that you will be able to find more information about the implemented activities, about the partnership, and contact us for further cooperation. Now I will move on to the webinar, which is based on ICZM topics, and tell you that this webinar belongs to a series of 4 webinars organized within the framework of Blue Islands project. These webinars have the aim and the objectives to contribute with capacity building to the interesting stakeholders, to give them main general knowledge, but also to illustrate some useful and interesting solutions in dealing with this issue. The main keywords are micro and microplastics, but also used water. But in this capacity building webinars, we decided to go further and to wider a little bit the topic, so that you get general knowledge and interesting solutions on ICZM topic, but also on other topics like circular economy, life cycle assessment, sustainable tourism. So I'm strongly inviting you to register if you didn't do it yet to the next webinars too, because they are somehow correlated. This one will go from a general approach and will discuss about waste management more generally, taking into consideration all other different problems and issues which can be met in the ICZM management. But the other 3 ones will be mainly focused on waste, marine waste, solid waste, and different techniques. They will be much more pedagogic, and they will try to show you existing solutions which were already implemented in Mediterranean, which can be applied to islands and coastal areas. So now I will give the floor to the first speaker, who is Daria Povh from PAPRAC, and she will present her organization herself and will speak in a general approach about the Mediterranean ICZM protocol, and also will showcase good practice with the coastal plan for Šibenik-Knin country in Croatia. Before starting, I would like to invite you to ask the questions by written method in the webinar. So at the end, we'll be able to pick up some of them. I will read them and ask the speakers to answer to these questions. And the other questions, because we have just 1 hour, so we'll try to be really short. You will be able to contact individually the speakers so that you can get answers to the other questions you may have. I'm giving the floor to Daria.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Christine. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I will present you, as Christine said, several issues. So before begin, let's see who actually we are, if you are not familiar with our organization. So we have been established in 1977 as one of the 7 regional activity centers of the Mediterranean Action Plan. Mediterranean Action Plan itself is one of the 18 regional Cs of United Nations Environment Programme. And these centers, which you may see, are each one in charge for a specific topic. PAPRAC is an action-oriented center, and we are focused on the coastal management projects on the ground. Today, our key mission is to provide assistance to countries to implement the ICZM protocol, which is our, let's say, major achievement in the legal field. This is how our structure looks like. So we are collaborating with other United Nations agencies, and what is important are actually our national focal points, who are our key resources and key persons in the countries, in each of the 21 Mediterranean countries, dealing with, in this case, ICZM. So when we say ICZM, this is how we have defined it in the protocol. So it is a dynamic process. It serves for sustainable management and use of coastal zones, taking into account at the same time the fragility of coastal ecosystems and the landscapes, the diversity of activities and uses, their interactions, and the maritime orientation of certain activities and uses, including their impact on both the marine and the land parts. So we have started in the late 80s with the implementation of these coastal management programs on the ground. And after many years of implementing it, the time had come to take one further step and to develop and adopt a legally binding regional instrument. So the ICZM protocol was signed in 2008. It took us 7 years to prepare this text, which was developed by the legal experts, but then it was negotiated by the countries with the different expert groups, regional forums. So after a long number of years, we came to 15 signatories, the country signatories, and today we have 11 ratifications. The protocol entered into force in 2011. Let me now mention 2 articles which are actually the most important for today's presentation. The first one is so-called Article 8, so-called setback article, which has been also called like the flagship article of the protocol. This one invites countries to establish in the coastal zone a zone where construction is not allowed, and this zone may not be less than 100 meters in width, although the same article foresees certain exemptions, but what we are inviting the parties are to establish the rules for these exemptions. Another important article is Article 18, which is dealing with the national coastal strategies, plans and programs. So this article is inviting countries to prepare national strategies and plans, and based on this article, we have prepared the plan for Šibenik-Knin, which I will present just a bit later. To go back to the basics, so the Mediterranean, or as it was in Latin, is a medius terra, the middle of earth, the cradle of civilizations, cradle of 3 religions, and the contact point of 3 continents, which is really important. So we have a Europe on one side, but we have Africa and Middle East. And what here we are working for this 40 years is to enhance this collaboration between all the Mediterranean countries. At this moment, we have approximately 33% of the population concentrated in these 12% of the coastal regions. There are huge disparities from the south, east, and north, and this is all changing. This is all trends. So in 60s we had a ratio of population distribution changed from 41 to 60 in the favor of southeast population, but average income in southeast countries is 4.6 times lower than the north. The Mediterranean, as we maybe all know or not for our distant participants, is the largest global tourism destination. We have like 1/3 of the world's tourists, and half of these tourists are actually coming to the coastal zones. Most of the Mediterranean countries, including African countries, experienced an overall increase in international tourism receipts. The Human Development Index constantly progressed since 1990, but all countries had an ecological deficit in 2012. The water efficiency use is between 14 and 80. And what is important, 80% of total pollution affecting Mediterranean Sea is coming from land-based sources. Finally, Mediterranean is identified as one of the main climate change global hotspots. It is highly vulnerable to climate change and will suffer multiple stresses and systemic failures due to climate change. The issue of solid waste, which is a very important topic for this project, is again very different in the north or in the south. For example, according to the solid waste production in the north is twice as much as the southeast, but also what is important to have in mind that the rate of the solid waste management treatment is about 97 in the north, while this rate for southeast is not very well known, and sometimes it goes from 19, 30, 50%. And as for the treatment, 50% is disposed at the open dumps. Again, in some tourist areas, more than 75% of the annual waste production is generated during summer. And as one recent study shown, the global carbon footprint of tourism is about 4 times larger than what we previously thought, and it is causing about 8% of the total emissions. The one also striking data is that the carbon flows between 160 countries in only these 4 years, from 2009 to 2013, were identified and found that the tourism-related emissions increased by 15% over that period. We all know that the tourism is the economic activity that is it's constantly growing, and for example, last year it had a very significant growth, and all of this is of course demonstrating in the global data. Finally, on per capita basis, small island destinations have the highest per capita footprints, and tourists are responsible from 30 to 80% of national emissions of island economies. All these externalities are not really well calculated into the cost of tourism, and usually tourism, of course, has a lot of opposition in order to take some of these environmental costs to take them inside. So now one little bit different postcard from the Mediterranean. When we talk about pollution of the Mediterranean Sea, and especially microplastic, we should never forget that the Mediterranean is a one sea, and the circulation is going from all around. So whatever happens in the sea, it comes to all of the countries. And if we deal with the pollution of the sea, we cannot, there are no national borders, there are no territorial waters, so the pollution is circulating. And these are some images from the Mediterranean. From our side, our response is in Barcelona Convention. This is the convention on which we have been founded in ¡76. And later on this convention, we have 7 protocols which are dealing with the different issues. As I mentioned before, we also have an ICZM protocol, but we also have a marine litter regional plan and the regional climate change adaptation framework. The number of parties where the protocols are entered into force is from 7 to 21, so it is quite different. And for this project, I think that the Articles 8, which I mentioned before, and 18, then Article 12, which is on islands, Article 20, that deals with the land policies, and finally the notion of carrying capacity, which happened for the first time in the legal document within this ICZM protocol, are of particular importance. We can also keep in mind that the countries lack sustainable and regular funding for biodiversity and ecosystem protection. These are all images from the Mediterranean and not from one country. So these are all root causes of the microplastics in the Mediterranean Sea. So now I will tell you a few words about how this looks like in one coastal plan. So as we said before, ICZM has a quite holistic approach, but also what we are trying to do is to focus on priority issues. So in one hand, we are considering the issue in a holistical manner, but we are focusing on the 20% of the themes which are causing 80% of environmental issues. Let's say this. This way. So for this project, the key issues were actually related to coastal floods, and it was in particular, it was focusing on the impacts of climate change. So for us, Coastal Plan is a guide towards sustainable development and towards building resilience of the regions. It is based, as I said, on the Article 18. In this case, it was adopted by the County Assembly, and by this it became a legal document for this county. It is a new generation plan and one of the few of such around the Mediterranean. In this case, in this county of Croatia, we have been working in the coastal region, but we took into account the whole estuary and the river basin of the river Krka in order to adopt and to use the ecosystem approach. So this region was for us interesting because it was, so to say, the richest by the terms of nature and the poorest by the terms of economy. It also had 19% of all Croatian islands and 30% of nautical tourism revenues, despite it is economically quite weak region. And it was experiencing floods in winter and shortage of water in summer months, high seasonality of tourism combined with the limited economic opportunities, and the short peak of season, which actually dictated the dimension of the whole infrastructure. As you may see on this diagram, the huge difference between all the other months but the July and August. We were lucky in this project that we had several other activities in parallel going on in Croatia. So we have been calculating a little bit about this possible cost of the climate change. And from these diagrams, you may see the forecasts of the Croatian population or population scenarios. So according to all scenarios, the population is falling. And on the other hand, Croatia keeps on constructing. So since 60s up to 20s, we have constructed 5 times more than all the generations that ever lived in this area. And the population, as you may see, was almost the same. There were not big change. Our spatial plan today allows 10 times more than all the previous generations who lived in these areas. So we also discovered that actually in this region, 7% of inhabitants will be endangered by the sea flooding, and 18.75% of expecting damages will be in this region. So the question is again, who will bear this cost? What is happening, you will see with the diagrams later on, where are the root causes for these disproportionalities. We have also analyzed all the economic sectors and saw that although all of them will be affected by the climate change, the worst potential impacts will be on the coastal assets, so the coastal flooding. Here you see the county and the county of Šibenik-Knin and the settlements which are in the hinterland in the Bordeaux, and in blue are coastal towns. So as you may see, the region is falling, the hinterland is falling, and the coastal cities are slightly growing and then falling. But when we look in the second diagram in more details, you can see that even in the coastal cities, the settlements which are next to the sea are growing, while those which are just the settlements behind, those are actually falling. And this diagram is showing that as for the secondary houses, you can see that in this county, in only 10 years, from 2001 and 2011, we have constructed the equal amount as in all previous years. And all this construction and all this population, everything comes down to this area very narrow to very close to the sea. So in the light orange areas, we have less than 25% of the permanent population. So as we all know, all the measures for protection from the sea level rise are extremely expensive. And in the countries that are using it now are all based on the demand for safety. So the question is here, who will bear these costs? In the development of the plan, we used the participatory approach. My colleague Antoine from the sister center Blue Plan will tell you a little bit more about this approach later on. And it was, I think, optimal combination of the ICZM plan, which is focusing on the priority issues, and the Climagine that is taking more holistic perspective in order to understand well the root causes and to design the measures which will really work, because it will tackle the root causes and not only the consequences. This is something that ICZM actually tries to make it possible now. It took us almost 2 years to prepare this project, and here you can see all the outputs. Everything is available on this website. You can download the plan and its summary in English, and you can see also the map collection, which is very interesting. So the plan itself, it has different coastal management policies. They are focused on the sustainable spatial development, on the building of coastal resilience, on water resources management and sustainable economic development. And these are all general measures for the whole of the county. And there are specific measures for the coastal settlements that are tackling all these issues. Another important outcome of this plan is the coordination body, and especially Coastal Committee. Coastal Committee is founded of the approximately 15 participants, representatives of the different county institutions, which are in charge for the crucial issues for the life on the coast, and also from the at the city level. And there is also advisory board which is helping us, and that is actually lived after the Climagine exercise. So the measures were focused on the spatial development. I won't go now into the depth of these measures into deep, but you will have the presentation, so you may see where they were focused. This map is showing the areas that experienced flood before the plan, and now the low-lying coastal areas. And while we were working on the water management, we've identified also the priority zones. So we were able to prioritize issues for the region. And now in one example of this priority region, location, you can see how this looks like this integrated project, which is kind of priority project. So the fact is that when we have heavy rains and storms, we have a rain coming from the mountains. In Croatian coast is rather steep, so one would say we are not so exposed to the sea level rise. But on the contrary, what happens now is that we have these rains that are coming quickly from the mountains and the slopes and getting down to the urbanized areas, which have lost actually and blocked all the permeable surfaces because of the asphalt and beton and all the urbanization. And so we have a flood coming from the rain, and also on the other side coming from the sea with the waves and the low pressure, high level of the sea. So everything meets actually in the coastal zone, and we have a very significant floods there. So I would like to remind you to this postcard from Mediterranean, when you have a open dump site which is at the level of the sea, well, it's clear. I mean, the sources of microplastics are everywhere around us. So these few concluding remarks are actually related to this coastal plan, which enabled to have a platform for building resilience and the sustainable coastal future for this county. This new committee will be a key leader in this endeavor, and its members experience the benefits of integrated approach. So now they don't look to their department in the silos like what they used to do before. I mean, they are better aware of all the things that are influencing the certain solutions, and also the response on of the certain measures and the solutions. So this, I would say that the coastal plans and strategies are a tool that may mobilize actors measures in defining the coastal future we want, and in defining the strategies how to get there, and in leading us to make the future that we want to really happen. This integrated approach enabled us, in the case of Šibenik, to take on board adaptation and mitigation measures, and the participatory approach, which is essential for every serious topic, enabled us to raise awareness, which is one of the key prerequisites and the most needed ingredient for facing any major issue. So it was a climate change, whether it is a climate change or marine litter, I would say. So this would be all from me, and I am here available for the questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daria, for this nice presentation. I just in order to, because we could understand that ICZM is treated in a holistic approach, and all the different climate change issues are part of this approach. I have, however, two questions which make the link between your presentation and our project. You was talking about coastal management policies in Šibenik-Knin countries, and I was wondering if the waste topic was included in some of them or not at all.
The waste is not such a big issue in Šibenik because, I mean, it is an issue, but it is a priority issue for the has just prepared a waste management plan, and they have just applied for the resources to build a new waste management center. So there are a lot of activities in this region on that topic already, that when we started working on the coastal plan, this was not a priority for us. So this is in a way the advantage of ICZM, because it focuses on the issues which are the priority for that area. But in order to find solutions, I mean, the issues should be seen in its integrity, because, for example, the seasonality of tourism in Šibenik-Knin region, just as everywhere else in most of the places around Mediterranean, represents actually the huge challenge, because the infrastructure should be dimensioned based on the summer peaks, and the summer peaks are so much far bigger than it's like 3 times more, 4 times more. And this means, you know, while we were working in Šibenik, we had firemen who complained because of tourism. We had doctors who complained because of tourism. So there are many hidden, not to talk about the waste. If the region doesn't have solved waste management issues in a proper manner, and you saw in my presentation how these percentages are looking for the Mediterranean, then that means that tourism is using the same thing like the population, of course. So nobody is taking actually the cost of polluting. So the pollutant do not pay, nor the population, nor the tourists. So in that case, tourism is producing always bigger and bigger damage for the environment, which is actually the loan that we took from our children without their consent. So actually, there are lots of these external hidden costs from tourism, and its seasonality makes it so much worse. You know, even for the wastewater management treatment, even the pipes cannot work in the winter time if there is nothing in them, and they are dimensioned 3 or 4 times more than what they actually need. So we were working a lot in Šibenik in order to understand all the consequences of seasonality, which is really a huge problem.
Thank you for your answer. I have some more questions, but I think I'll leave them for the end of the session, because we overlapped a little bit with the time. And I'll give the floor to Antoine from Plan Bleu. Antoine, are you there?
Yes, yes, I am here. It's okay. Do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I can. Okay, is it okay?
Yeah, it's okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Antoine Lafitte. I am ICZM program officer in Plan Bleu, and if you recall correctly, Plan Bleu is one of the regional activity center of UNEP MAP. as my colleague Daria presented before. So I will talk quickly about Plan Bleu just to present our activities, and then I will present some tools, the tools that Plan Bleu applied to support the ICZM protocol implementation, and then I will give you a quick overview of a project we implemented in the Var department in the south part of France, related to the evaluation of coastal risk. So Plan Bleu has been created 40 years ago as an observatory and prospective center supporting the decision-making process. It is attached to the Mediterranean Action Plan, which is the first UNEP Regional Sea Program. And the main objective is to support the 21 countries of the Barcelona Convention, including the European Union. So my colleague Daria has already given some key figures for the Mediterranean. So there are many figures here, but we can keep in mind that the Mediterranean is only 1% of the ocean sea surface, but the Mediterranean hosts 8% of known marine species. It's also 3% of the world water resources for only 7% of the world's population. One figure here really important regarding the topic is that 80% of the marine pollution comes from the land. So I guess you will have the presentation then, so you can have access on all these figures. Our missions is really to integrate all the environmental issues through a common system of analysis. So we are developing some indicators, we are drafting some reports, we are integrating also the climate change as a priority. I will give you some elements about this topic then. We are also supporting the transition toward the green and blue economy, which is, let's say, kind of new topic. And we are also providing some socioeconomic insights for the appropriate management of Mediterranean resources. So regarding the climate change, in the Mediterranean, there is a quite new network called MEDEC for Mediterranean expert group on climate change and environmental changes. So in Plan Bleu, we are hosted the Secretariat in partnership with the Union for the Mediterranean. The main objective of this network is to produce a first scientific assessment report like IPCC can do at the global level. This report is planned for the next year, plus a summary for decision makers. You have here a map. Sorry, it's in French, but just to tell you that there are different scenarios regarding the potential impacts of the climate change, especially here the increasing of air temperature. Just to say that the warming in the Mediterranean basin is 1 to 1.5 times stronger than the warming at global level. So it's really important for us to develop some strategies to adapt and mitigate the impacts of climate change. Now let's move on the tools applied by Plan Bleu to support the ICZM protocol. So as my colleague Daria said, it's a unique legal tool for integrated management of coast recognized by the contracting parties. So in order to support its implementation, Plan Bleu has developed a set of tools like indicators and also participatory approach called Imagine. I will go into detail just after that. These tools are here to assist countries to design national and transnational ICZM strategies and coastal plans. Regarding the participatory method Imagine, this method has been implemented in 5 coastal area management programs with PAPRAC from the year 2000-2005 in Algeria, in Cyprus, in Lebanon, for example. And within the frame of a recent project dealing with the impacts of climate change on coastal zones, Plan Bleu and PAPRAC has adapted these methods to Climagine in order to allow stakeholders to better integrate adaptation measures of climate change impacts into coastal management plans. So here you have displayed on the screen the three-step process of the Climagine method. So we have basically three workshops, and also at some points we can use a specific tool, which is the interviews with specific stakeholders. So the first workshop is mainly to understand the context, the territorial diagnosis. What are the main issues, how to prioritize these issues, and also identify the data providers. And also regarding the topic of climate change, to have all the stakeholders could have the same definition of the climate change dimensions, which is not so obvious. Regarding the second workshops, we define the local threats, and also based on these issues, on these threats, we identify a core set of indicators and also the key variables of scenario assumptions. And then in the last workshop, we work on scenarios and also on possible recommendation and setting the priorities for local ICZM action plan. Here I just want to highlight the kind of stakeholders we have in our Climagine workshops. We have experts and scientists who are specialized in marine and coastal environment. We have also administration and agencies which manage economic sectors and uses of marine or coastal zones. We have also all the NGOs active in the marine and coastal environment. We are the professionals, representative of the socio-economic sectors. We have also the decision makers, and we tried, because it was not really easy to get them, the donors, the bank and insurance sectors. The role of the stakeholders. So the participation can be defined as a process where individuals, group and organization, what we call stakeholders actually, choose to take an active role in making decisions that affect them. Through Climagine, we encourage the creativity, the discussion. It's a participatory process where the stakeholders are experts because they know their territory for formulating territorial solutions based on a common vision. Actually, regarding the case presented by my colleague Daria in Šibenik, we were here to provide methods, but the stakeholders were really the experts of their territories. Just a small drawing here to tell you that there are multiple pressures, conflict, challenges on the coastal zone, but also many opportunities. We try to, with these methods, to encourage stakeholders to develop and to capitalize on these opportunities. Now I will move on this activity experience we had with the coastal area management program in the Var department regarding an evaluation of coastal risks. So this study allowed the implementation of an assessment methods in 2016. This activity was done in partnership with PAPRAC, Conseil départemental du Var, Conservatoire du littoral, and also the Med Sea Foundation and all the data providers. this part of France is has a lot of many actually seaside resorts in the Mediterranean, really attractive for tourism. In the Var, it's about 10 million of tourists per year. The Var economy is highly dependent on tourist and residential attractiveness regarding the climate, but also the environment and the quality of the coastal landscapes. But numerous studies show an acceleration of the erosive dynamics and marine submersion due to sea level rise, storms, and surges. The erosion due to dams and extraction of sands from rivers are really important, the urbanization and artificial dikes, but also the interaction between all these, let's say, climate parameters could really increase the risks and the vulnerability of this coastal zone, and all this interaction are very dangerous. And we have this example of the storm Xynthia in 2010, which was really terrible. So the objective for the VAR was to develop a coastal risk index method, makes it possible to evaluate the risks of erosion and marine submersion for the coastal zone of the VAR department according to climate change scenarios. And you have on the screen a drawing that you can find in the IPCC report 5, and we consider the risk as a definition as it is mentioned on this diagram. So regarding the coastal risk index allows to define a coastal hazard zone. I will show you then an example, and allow us to design, to identify an area where the risk could be weighted and ranked. And this kind of maps are a useful tool for developing coastal adaptation plan. Some information, quick information regarding the methods. So we use the terminology of coastal forcing, coastal vulnerability, and coastal exposures, and also several variables. This kind of map allows us to visualize the qualitative classification of risks in the coastal hazard zone, which quite good resolution because we can have a grid of 100 meter per 100 meter. We can also identify the level of risk, not only for the coastline, but also for the interland, potentially affected by marine floods, submersions. And this kind of map, as I said, support the decision-making process and strengthen the skills of public actors in terms of adaptation to coastal risks. So here you have on the screen the kind of map we have produced for the entire region of Var, and you can identify easily some coastal hotspots. A more detailed map here, the coastal hazards zone of a certain part of the territory. This coastal hazard zone is defined with a precautionary principle. So we use the most pessimistic scenario for sea level rise at the horizon 2100. So the blue zone materializes the maximum penetration of the water in the land up to an altitude of 6 meters. And in this zone, we have calculated the intensity of the risks. So you have the results here, so you can easily see where the risk is the most important, and considering a certain number of variables, 20, we can produce this kind of map. So the value of the exposure is very high for the municipality of Grimaud due to the presence of tourist activities, and residents in the Gulf. Especially here, we have a lot of houses in the seafront and also a place to do camping. All the ports have the same level of risks here. And we have also here, all this part is an old coastal protection system in place, which increase the vulnerability of this part. We have here a sandy beach called Pamplonne with few homes, but the beach itself is an important source of incomes for the local economy. Another example, close to San Rafael. So you have here a plain. The value of the exposure is very high in general. There are houses and sandy beaches that welcome many tourists. And you can also see that we have erosion here and here due to harbor structures on the north of the bay. And you have also on this south some spikes, what we put in place in order to protect the beach behind, but we have this kind of impacts behind the protection. You have this part really sensitive to the erosion. So it was my last slide. I hope it was clear, and I remain available to answer your questions, and I am pleased to share with you my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Antoine. I promised to ask the questions at the end of the session, but I received one which is probably more linked with your intervention. So just 1 second to find it. Yes, Patricia Ventura is asking which type of variables are used to assess the coastal risk indicator. Could you provide examples?
Yes, thank you for the question. Of course, we have many things to tell about these methods. I am happy to share with you if you want the entire report, so we can have an access to all the variables we used. But we use some climatic forcing, so I would say natural and environmental variables, like the geomorphology, like the current on the sea, like the slope of the beach. And we also used some, let's say, human variables, for example, the age of the population, which is really important because of if we have to develop a warming system alert, if you have old population, they will react not at the same speed than if you have more younger population. We are also considering the tourist arrivals. We are also considering climatic parameter like the heavy rains, wave. So we are using several variables, and then we attribute a weight of for each of these variable based on scientific results on literature. So I am happy to share with you the entire report. If you want, you can send me an email, and I will send you the report.
Thank you, Antoine. Okay, in any case, we will share with the audience your contact details so they can contact you and ask all the questions which were not discussed today during this session. Now I'll give the floor to Céline Damery from Conservatoire du Littoral. She's here with me with the third intervention. Do not hesitate to ask the questions you have for her also during her presentation. So I will keep some of them at the end if the people are still have some extra minutes to be in. Yeah.
Can you put the presentation?
I'll try to share the screen now.
No problem.
Just 1 second. I'm just trying to share the...
I will start to talk maybe in the meantime. So to say hello to you first, and thank you for attending this webinar, which is also a first experience for me. So I'm in the difficult position to conclude this webinar by talking about ICZM applied at the scale of small islands. So on my side, I'm working at the Conservatoire du Littoral, which is a French organization, depending on the Ministry of Environment, and which mission in France is to buy land in coastal areas and also around the lakes of more than 1,000 hectares in order to ensure on the long term the preservation of these territories. Yes, this is it, the first slide, so you can see briefly. So we have been created in the 1975, so we have more than 40 years of experience, and today we're owner now of more than 2,000 hectares. The figures you see was in 2017, so, but since recently, this year, we reached this target of 200,000 hectares under the protection of the Conservatoire and its partners. And so these sites are located along French metropolitan, but also in overseas territories. And on our sites, we welcome more than 40 million of visitors per year. Sorry, we have a problem with the presentation with the slide. Yeah, this is it. And so on my side, I'm working at the European International Department of the Conservatoire du Littoral. So our mission is to provide at the same time institutional assistance and technical assistance to countries at their request in link with the implementation of integrated coastal zone management. So to help them to implement their own coastal policies and strategies. So this means that we participate in a lot of cooperation projects. We organize some field mission to strengthen the knowledge or to provide some expertise on the field. We organize also some capacity building activities on some pilot sites. So we have a very large panel of activities. Regarding islands, so we have a specific interest because islands are specific territories. At national scale, the Conservatoire is owner of several islands in metropolitan, in overseas, and at the international scale, we are at the origin of 2 cooperation programs which are dedicated to better manage and better preserve the islands. For sure, when I say that, it's also always in link with the countries and the partners in the countries, which can be coastal agencies, which can be ministries, which can be NGOs. So in 2005, we started to focus on Mediterranean small island through the PIM initiative project. The objective of this program was to ensure communication and to provide some technical assistance to better manage the small islands of less than 1,000 hectares. So it allowed us to start taking into account the issues of waste in the management of small islands, because these small islands, less than 1,000 hectares, there is not a lot of population on these islands. Sometimes it's an island with the daily tourism or tourists coming, staying some few days on the islands. So this generates a lot of plastic, this generates a lot of problem due to sanitary issues like feces left on the islands. So for sure, this have to be integrated when you think about managing a site. Yes, put after that the good plan or the good activities or to provide the good devices to control this waste management. More recently, we are also at the origin of a second program. I will be focusing on it in my presentation, the SMILO program. For SMILO, it means a small island organization. And the idea was to focus about the sustainable management of this island. We're talking about island of more than 15,000 hectares, so island with population, or island with a higher pressure in link with tourism or other activities like fisheries, agriculture, etc., etc. So we are working in a worldwide way, so not only in the Mediterranean. First of all, I wanted to talk also about the link. These two programs, either PIM or SMILO, are in link with the other Article 12 of the Mediterranean ICZM protocol. Daria started to speak about that before. Regarding SMILO program, we have now 18 pilot sites engaged in the labeling process, which is the target of SMILO. Helping islands to better manage their site and helping them to reach a label at the end. So the waste issues is one of the thematic which is considered by this initiative. And so we're starting to have more exchange of experience and know-how and good practices about this issue, notably through a workshop that we have been organizing last January. When we were preparing this workshop, we were facing the fact that there is not how to say a compilation existing about good practices about how to manage the waste in small islands, and this is a great difficulty because finally the islands are sharing the same thematics, and so there is each of them are making their own activities, but there is not a place where everything is compiled. And so we try, as far as we can, to capitalize all this information, all these good practices existing, and we try to share it, because one thing that I've been doing in a small island in Senegal could be replicated in Corsica Island very easily. When I say that, it's, for example, because Gorée Island in Senegal, which is a famous place that maybe some of you already know. There is a population living on this island. They welcome more than 1 million of tourists per year. So we have been working on an environmental management system, integrating the issue of waste. And when we presented that to other managers of islands of France, of Povh Island, of Lavezzi Island, they were really impressed by the work which has been done by our Senegalian colleagues. So now, with the SMILO program, and notably through a project which is funded by the Prince Albert Foundation, we're going to work more on some pilot islands about different issues of waste. In Lavezzi Island, we're going to work on sanitary waste, because Lavezzi are not with a population, but there is a lot of tourists coming, but there is no toilet on the place. So the idea is to help them through a study to work on the conception of a toilet boat. So the toilet shouldn't be on the island, but should be on a platform boat, which allow to make some exchange with the closest harbor, and to eliminate this waste, so they couldn't be let on the site. On the Kerkena Island in Tunisia, we are going to work about the recycling of fishing nets, because a lot of old fishing nets are abandoned. We can find it in the marine middle very easily. So the idea should be to recycle these fishing nets by maybe put them in a kind of crusher and use that like a kind of material for building construction. This is something which have not been tested yet. We're also in an innovative process. In Principe Island, in Sao Tome and Principe, they've been testing nearly the same situation by using some glass waste, glass bottle, I mean. And so through a crusher, the glass was broken, and they were using it in building materials to build some walls, to build some house. So we have to be very clever. We have to think about how to use this waste problem and to have it in a positive way for the management. We're also going to work on the green waste, like in some islands which are not far away from here, French island of Le Vent in Porco National Park. On this island, there is a great problem with the green waste, the vegetal waste. So the idea, in order to avoid other costs of transport, if this green waste was exported to the mainland, the idea is to provide them a crusher, so it could be transformed into compost and then provided in the different gardens to feed directly the soil. I'm going to talk briefly because I think we're running out of time about the last example through this Prince Albert project with the Sazani Island. I'm working now since more than 5 years on this island in Albania, which is the largest island of Albania, integrated in the first marine protected area. And so we're working very closely with our colleagues from the Coastal Agency of Albania and Protected Area Agency of Albania in order to develop a project which could be restoring, conserving, and enhancing the remarkable heritage of Sazani Islands, while providing opportunities of socio-economic and ecological benefits. This could be done through, for sure, public welcoming on the island, which is not the case actually. And so, in all the reflection that we engage when we were preparing the Sazani Island management plan, we try to integrate the parameter of waste, because when you welcome public of an island, it would generate waste, how it works. And also on the island, we have a great issue with the military waste, because the island is property of Ministry of Defense. And so there is some remainings of this military past, so we have to remove it. We're thinking maybe to reuse the non-dangerous waste to transform it in some artistic way, etc., or to recycle it in material construction. I see some doubts in the eyes of my colleagues nearby, so we're trying to be innovative, and I think this is the interesting thing with islands. With islands, we have a great interest. We have the waste problem, so we can find solutions, and we have to find solutions about that. So I thank you for your attention. So as I was saying, we've been organizing a workshop about waste management on islands in Bonifacio this year in the framework of cooperation project Interreg Maritimo between France and Italy. Next week, I will be in Sardinia because we are organizing a workshop about water management impact zero. We have also, as you can see on my slide, other workshops planned in the project. And so I think that with this ISOS project, with the SMILO project, with PRIM project, with Blue Island project, we have an opportunity to capitalize information, and this will be very useful for all our organization and also for future organization facing this problem of waste in islands. So I think this first network that we're creating now will be very useful for the future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Céline, for the nice presentation, but also for this nice conclusion, actually, because it was almost a conclusion. I think it was very nice to find that there are international programs dealing with waste management, just more focused on small islands. And when I met Céline, I was asking her, but there is a way to add big islands to the small ones, and she was telling me that it's already difficult to work with the small islands. So perhaps just these programs can be an example for our partnership. I mean, the big islands, to try to make a partnership, a strong partnership dealing with waste management. And I really we really liked her phrase when she told we have to be clever in dealing with waste management, because there are a lot of solutions and technology existent. We as a cluster, we are working all the time with SMEs, with engineers, with experts who have knowledge on how to deal with the waste issues. So I think that this is a kind of transition to the next 3 webinars, which will be organized the next week. I mean, on the 22nd, 24th, and 25th. and I will share it. I share the slide with you right now with the Blue Islands project website. You can go on the on the website and subscribe these webinars, because they will really showcase. If here we talked about the coastal plans, about coastal risks, and we got closer to the thematic of waste management. In the next webinars, we'll really talk about I mean, bio-waste, solid waste, microplastic and micro and macroplastic issues. So we'll try to showcase some existing examples which can be applied to big islands. Perhaps why not trying together to discuss and find a way to stronger collaborate together, because one of my questions when I was listening to this presentation was how to apply these coastal plans which are presented in ICZM approach to our problem. We also had some questions from the public. And if you are still in for 5 minutes more, I'm sorry, we are a bit late. I will invite the speakers to answer to them. Just 1 second, because I'm trying to get on the question panel. I'm trying to get in, but yes. So someone was asking a question, and I think it was addressed to Antoine again, and it was linked with which are the main findings when applying the imaging methodology, good results, hydrants, gaps, feedbacks about some experience, especially in countries such as Lebanon or Algeria. Thank you.
Yes, so we have also a series of reports. After each workshop, actually, a report has been drafted. So again, I am happy to share with you the reports for these two countries, Algeria and Lebanon. But unfortunately, this method has been implemented from 2000 to 2005, and I was not in Plan Bleu before, so I was not involved in this implementation of workshops. So I am sorry for this short answer, but please send me an email, and I will send you all the reports regarding these two countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Antoine. Another comment, more than a question, well, it was a question and a comment. It was from the part of the Tourism Agence of Corsica, who would like to develop a sustainable strategy on the territory. So they wanted to know how they can do and if we can work together. Thank you a lot, Marine Solinas. So we will get to you back. I mean, the Blue Islands team, and of course we can share your contact if you agree with the speakers also, so we can try to find a way to better collaborate for future actions regarding the sustainable strategies of the islands and of the territories we represent. The other question was regarding the attendance list, and unfortunately I won't be able to share the contacts of the persons who are attending, because I didn't ask this question before, and we decided to keep it confidential. But if you have, I mean, if you want to contact the speakers or myself, or you're looking for a partner, don't hesitate to write us, and we'll try to put you in contact with the good persons. As promised, I will also just try to share with you the next webinars, which are taking place at the same time on the 22nd of May, 24th of May, and on the 25th of May in the morning. For future information on the, I have a problem with my, yes, for future information on the presentations, please don't hesitate to contact us. And also you'll receive tomorrow perhaps an email following this presentation with some more extra informations, and I will also send you the PowerPoint so you have everything which was presented here. I would like to thank you again to the speakers who supported myself in building up the content of this webinar. And wish you all a very, very nice afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.